Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief Recap. Always an adventure with YouTube, so maybe we'll give YouTube page a moment to kick in here. Kevin, if you happen to see it running, just give me a holler. But always an exciting time with YouTube. Are you available? Yeah, it looks like it's running. It's kind of weird, eh? All right, cool. So I don't have a screen that says this video is unavailable, but we'll try our best here. Okay, so welcome to Friday, TGIF, 29th of May. Tax filing deadline for Canadians. Just a gentle reminder, you better get that done by the end of today. If I understand correctly, the Canadian government said you don't have to pay your tax bill until September, though, but you do have to file by today. It is Friday, of course, TGIF, getting ready for the weekend, getting ready for crypto frivolity. We were kind of let down last weekend, eh? We just didn't get any follow-through buying. But, interestingly enough, almost all of the names that we were looking at heading into last weekend, they all just sort of went sideways through the whole week, and here we go again. Lots of W's coming in. So interesting how on Fridays we have one of our sort of crypto specialists, if you will, Colin, who comes on, and he was talking lots about his expectation for relatively uppy crypto and really more sort of like altcoin market. Actually a lot of really interesting W's coming in on his price charts. So good value for the audience, I think, today. Your list that I like to talk about in the public, not a heck of a lot of change here. I went and bought some stock today. We talk a little bit about that. Taking a real good look at some Ethereum options right now. Looking for some follow through there, and unfortunately for Bitcoin, actually, it's pretty much following what I had anticipated, which means it's kind of a hurry up and slow down kind of market state for Bitcoin right now. Anyway. Looking at US dollar index, a little bit leery about getting sucked into getting too bearish against these lows, but nonetheless, we've talked about this narrow sideways channel working its way along here for quite some time. We've come down now. We've tripped up this railroad tracks lows, but you can see they're violently reversing it off at that level. Did see that the euro was kind of running out of steam, some of the commodity currencies too. And actually, interestingly enough, I started to see the Japanese yen perk up, which in itself might actually be a suggestion that maybe risk is getting a little bit long in the tooth, and we might see some risk off come back into the market. So, interesting times ahead, no doubt. Historically, with a falling US dollar index, technically that should be good for gold. We'll talk a little gold, silver in a bit, but in essence, I do see that the metals markets are enjoying a bit of a bid there. Our general message to people on the site right now with regard to the stock market is be very careful here, everyone. We're very late. I mean, where is the top? Do we have to go all the way up to this head and shoulders, 78.6, liquidity pools? Do we lose this trend line and start aiming out on the other side of it? There's no real actual outright sell signal here just yet. It's just, gee whiz, look how far we've come here. We know May is not supposed to be a time when you want to get too overtly bullish. And if anything, be careful because, of course, Brian and his crazy celestial events, we got a big one coming up here at the end of June, beginning of July. Wonderful. Also, too, quite shocking, not really the place from these videos to talk about it, but the civil unrest within the United States of America is getting quite palatable. If anything, par for the course for 2020, I've talked to you people repeatedly about how wonky this year is going to be. And frankly speaking, I just hope we all live through this. It's going to be a challenging year, folks. Anyway, from a trading perspective, not actually anything for me to do today, but if we start losing this uptrend line, start aiming out, I am going to seriously be thinking about downside. And probably the market that actually has me most interested right now is actually the US semiconductors. I put out a tweet the other day and I thought it was interesting. Whenever I put out tweets and I get sort of a violent reaction negatively to my tweets, I know I'm probably onto something. And I have the semiconductors all here on a grid. And you can see like Intel's rallied back up top and the range filled in a gap. Nvidia's back up against a speed line here. AMD looking very, very toppy and value's a long way down. A lot of these sort of intermediate names, we're actually nowhere near the old highs, you know, AMAT, Xilinx, Teradyne, Texas Instruments. But, you know, this SOX, this is the SOX index, the semiconductor index. I mean, this is basically now in officially an acceptable trade location. So what I now want to do, of course, is drill down, look for indicator divergences, signs that they're rolling over, and then give me a nice sort of inside bar fail, M top, empire, whatever. And I'm definitely going to be going and hunting put options there. It's not there just yet, but man, that's starting to look really juicy. So I'll be watching for opportunities. So getting back to our conversation here, you know, I've talked to you recently about how I really don't like the crude oil market right up against this resistance level. I mean, it'll do any old damn thing it wants, but I would be really surprised if we don't have to take some sort of pause here. You can see we're still sort of coiling in a trading range here. And now, you know, interestingly enough, we could probably bot out levels heading higher. But it just seems to me that this is, you're coming late to the party. And I could even see a nice little pop-up here on a momentum divergence. It's a trap and then a dump. And that's kind of what I've been sort of worried about with Bitcoin recently too. Having said that, this isn't a market I'd be interested in. I've told you about that before. I suppose we could map out bots and stuff like that. See what kind of levels they are. I'll probably do that in the coming week or two. You know, with the risk on market and looking a little bit heavy up here, I do find it interesting risk off. And like I said earlier, I was a bit surprised to see the yen as firm as it was. You know, when we look at our risk on, risk off matrix, oh, isn't that interesting? Now yen's rolled over. All right, well, first thing this morning, yen was cranking up higher here and was trying to put in a W. So that's interesting how it's rolled over now. You can see the bonds are trying to W. Remember our conversation about the narrow sideways channel. It goes on. And it's interesting to see how the gold is perked up here. But really, I think still it's the silver. I mean, you know, we actually talked a bit about chaos levels and how markets work their way higher into bot objectives using consolidations to build up energy. So that was that conversation we had in the daily brief today. But what I do find fascinating about this chart, I'll just get rid of all this stuff, is, you know, from a higher time frame perspective, there's really not much change here. Actually, yeah, that's the daily chart right there, right? So really, you know, pretty respectable structural level off of this 1572 level. Move stop to scratch, move stop to trailing. We let structure develop. We talked about moving stops. And frankly speaking, I think you probably still have your stop at that level. And really, you have your AOCO order working at 1922, and you just let this thing do its thing. And that, my hunch is if this doesn't get filled by the end of today, it'll probably get filled on that Sunday, late Sunday evening session, early Monday morning. This thing's got a hell of a head of steam behind it. You know, I think I've talked to you recently about this. I actually do like the relative attractiveness of silver, you know, like cost-wise. Gold, you know, it's expensive. I mean, you can see it's like 100 times the price of silver, right? There's your ratio, 94 times. It looks like gold's getting ready to do something here. Look at these ugly, violent gaps. So that to me says we're probably going to see price come back down here at some point in the future. But now we've got 1 low, 2 lows, 3 lows, 4 lows. Oh, man, that's looking very structural. So I don't know. It almost looks to me like we could see some serious face rip in the metals here. That's a very sort of risk-offy kind of vote in my mind. As I had sort of said earlier, the domestic situation within the United States of America is spiraling out of control. The domestic situation within China is, specifically with regard to Hong Kong, spinning out of control. What I'm really worried about here, folks, 2020, I put these kind of tweets out yesterday is, and I hate to say it, man, we now have a situation where these two players, neither of them has anything to lose on either side. If the CCP fails, they might, lose leadership and they might, end up getting executed. If Donald Trump loses this election coming up in the fall, the talk through the whole Russian probe and stuff was that statute of limitations, he's probably going to be charged with crimes should he not win this next election. So both sides, the stakes are staggeringly high, which is dangerous for all of you and I. Just the public, we of course are pawns in all of this. I sure hope we live through 2020. If we don't, it's awfully nice knowing you. And I had kind of joked in the Daily Brief today, hey, the good part about that if we don't is, hey, I get to see you all on the other side, and you all get to meet JoJo. So that's a bonus. All of you get to figure out, you get to meet who this JoJo person is I always talk about. So in a weird sort of way, I don't have a problem if it's the end of the world, because then I get to be with my sweetheart. So go figure. How twisted. But anyway, crazy world we're living in right now. I'll tell you that much, by crackers. Back to our fun story here. I have no idea how these narrow sideways channels are going to resolve. And man, it's been a drama on all of these things. So here we are pressing up against the highs on the gold here. And let's see if the bonds want to rock and roll. I would imagine if, from what I understand, there's supposed to be big press conferences and stuff today from U.S. executive leadership with regard to China. So I think a lot of the market's sort of like just holding their breath. What's he going to say? What's he going to say? I suppose you could argue over the past couple of days the era has come out a bit of the junior stock market kind of bubble euphoria. And again, the end of May, should that really surprise us? Not really. No huge banging out doubles tweets today. But, there are some really cool little stocks. Here's a really good example of one that came back down into a reload zone. You can see the W's coming in here. And they announced yesterday that news release, something, COVID, something, COVID, and the stock pops. I like the fact that there's so few shares out. I like the fact that it is a pharma, healthcare related name, so that means it's not economically sensitive, so it's not going to, be sucked up into the cyclical story. And then also, too, look at this chart. Gee whiz. Good looking location to take a shot. As I always tell you guys, don't chase. So we're not allowed to come in on the buy side up top here, but I just worked my bid right down in the reload zone and ding, ding, ding. Merry Christmas. I got a fill this morning here at like 135 or so, somewhere in there. So, there's a name actually I took a little nibble on. Wish me luck. You guys all wish me luck on my... what the hell was it? My VFF and my, BITK, and my mana. Yeah, so you guys wishing me luck. Turns out it worked and I made some good money off that. So wish me luck again, please. Thanks. Anyway, point here is you should all look at this chart and go, gee whiz, this has got a guy like Beamish. It's got him written all over it. And, of course, if we zoom out, gee whiz, do you think this thing has any room to move up here if it can get its act together? I see a juicy gap up here at $20 a share. That's crazy. If I could get $2, $2.50 on this thing over the short term, I get myself some free stock. And then who knows where the hell the wind's going to blow us. But anyway, that's what I've been doing in the market here today. So... heading on over to the corn. The interesting thing here, like I had sort of said earlier, with Colin doing a presentation on the site today. He's sort of our crypto sort of in-house specialist. I get the impression that the altcoin space, it just, I think the powers that be would love to just keep pushing it down. Shitcoins, they're garbage crap, blah, blah, blah. But I actually think there's actually some value in this space now. And so as a result, it's actually really difficult to beat these things down. The problem here with Bitcoin at like 9,000 some odd dollars, is that close to cost of production? Is that close to value? In my opinion, not really. But so what? I mean, that's just Brian's opinion. The problem here with Bitcoin is, in my opinion, this is after the news event. So, what is the fundamental driver if somebody came to me and said, okay, pitch me why Bitcoin is going to rally? And if you're going to pitch a story, kind of like what I said with that little pharma name and COVID, I mean, you got to have a story. There's got to be a something. Oh, I'm buying Bitcoins because it's happening a month or two from now, and we know the price likes to rally into the happening event. Okay, that's a good story. I could buy that. What is this story? What's the pitch right now for Bitcoin? And frankly speaking, I can't think of one. Oh, store of value, US dollars going to zero. Well, that, those are macro, big picture kind of things. Satoshi's vision. Well, no, not even going to touch that shit. But the point that I would just make here is it's very difficult for me to try and figure out why. Why do I want to own Bitcoin? And what scares me is if we do have a rally that breaks out to new highs and we start doing these megaphone kind of setups here, and there really isn't a fundamental driver driving this story, oh boy, look out. As I had sort of laid out to you on the public videos of late, I really do believe that we are doing a very normal sort of pre-halvening rally price action and then post-halvening price action. And, my message to people on the site today was, guys, if I was thinking about shorting Bitcoin, this is exactly where I should be hunting those shorts. And, interestingly enough, you see the little perk up and then we slowly melt down and then we finish our move here. So I don't really want to trade this. I don't really have any great desire to be short right now. And if anything, the way I kind of look at this is dips, buying opportunities. Dips are buying opportunities. I'm not really a Bitcoin bear. I just think that the price is too high for me to justify buying right now. If I wanted to feed ego and stuff like that, build site memberships, subscriptions, and all that kind of shit, the trade is to step in and hunt shorts in here. But like I said, I'm lazy. I'm getting old now. I'm over the hill. Do I really need to get that aggressive in hunting short setups? Not really. But, that's sort of the way that I would look at it right now. And, if we drill down to lower time frames, I don't really like to show these two in the public, but you can see reload zones, trend lines. You can see the structure signals coming in. You can see the top of value. So it made sense why the price stopped here. I mean, it's just everything that we do at TRI. So with that said, I don't really have a hell of a lot of, interest to trade Bitcoin right now. The market, ironically enough, that I'm actually most interested in, which actually really does surprise me to a certain degree, is Ethereum. And I showed you this chart recently. I showed, I've tweeted this out, just like, what the hell's going on here? And you can see we actually have now broken out through this this double bottom, and there's even a double bottom within a double bottom, and gee whiz, that double bottom came right off of bot levels. So if you're a bot trader, you have no choice. You have to be long. I would argue now, what I'd like to see, I really like LJ's basically trendline breakout setups, is what I'd really like to see is, can I please have a nice W here? For our little trading group here in Vancouver, we decided that this is an interesting play to look at, like the 280 calls for September, with the anticipation that these things should be worth about 32, 33 points at our target. And we'd ideally like to pay about 8 or 9. So we're watching the September 280 calls. And they got a trading range of about 8 to the downside and about 9 or 10 to the upside. So that's the option I'm going to be watching. And what I just simply told the team was, let's maybe wait for a Wyckoff check, see if we can find some sort of lower time frame turn here, momentum, price structure wise, and then maybe we'll go pull the trigger on those calls. So that's something I'm seriously considering here. And a question that I put out to the world is, what's fundamentally going on with Ethereum? Does Ethereum have a story that we can actually latch on to? And like I said a few minutes ago, last week, we had all of these coins all sort of setting themselves up. And then last weekend, nothing happened. Everybody just stalled. But the interesting thing is you can see on all of these, then price just stopped. Nothing's really happened here. So ironically enough, a lot of these bullish bot setups, they're just sitting here. They're just waiting for somebody to say, all right, game on. So keep your eyes peeled. Hunt them W's. Hunt them bots. I got a funny feeling there's still some money to be made here on the long side. All right, I think we'll leave the free video at that for today. Sure hope you enjoyed the offering. Gave you maybe some ideas to chew on. Going to be a tough 2020, everybody. Just try and remember what your number one job is. And your number one job should be, I have to make sure that I can come back and play the game in 2021. Because 2020, oh man, this is just a mess. So enjoy the ride. This will be a stories to tell your grandkids. PMA for the win. And if anything, new people to trading, this is an excellent time to come in and just get the process. Learn the process. Get all this crap done. So that when we do go back to happy-go-lucky, banging out doubles, woohoo, insane or nutso frivolity, you're just owning it, right? But right now, how do they say? Caution is the better part of valor. I think that's how the expression goes. All right, everybody, have yourselves an awesome rest of your day. All the best, and bye for now.